Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Chantel, and today I am so excited to make a video on my brand new M4 iPad Pro. I am gonna do a quick little unboxing and then we'll talk about some of the new features and whether or not I think this is a good purchase. I have these, and I also got the new Magic Keyboard and Apple Pencil Pro, so we'll talk about those too. So if you're interested, let's go over and do a quick little unboxing. Okay, now that this beautiful iPad is out of the box, full disclosure, I filmed the unboxing portion of this video about a week ago, so I've had my hands on this guy for a little while, and I'm gonna be able to give you a little bit of my thoughts of my hands-on experience and share with you some of the new features on this new iPad. So first things first, you have two size options to pick from, the 11-inch and the 13-inch. I went for the 13-inch personally. That's my preferred size. Ever since I went for the larger iPad, I find that I prefer that, but a lot of people like the 11-inch because it's a lot more portable and light. So that is definitely something to think about, what kind of size you prefer, and I would definitely recommend looking at them in person if you're deciding between those two. But these are the same sizes that we have seen in the past from Apple. So you would wonder if your accessories would work, and that is where we notice a huge change. These iPads are a lot thinner than the previous versions of the iPad. These are actually the thinnest Apple products that have ever come out, thinner than the iPad Nano used to be. It's honestly kind of insane to hold. It feels extremely light. It feels like it shouldn't be anything at all, let alone something this powerful and useful. I've never thought about needing my iPad to be lighter, but it is a nice little feature. But that does mean that none of the accessories that I've had work, even though this iPad is quite similar. And I do mean none of them. My smart folios don't work. My off-brand folio cases don't work. My Magic Keyboard doesn't work. And even the Apple Pencil from the previous generation, the Apple Pencil Generation 2, doesn't work either. So when you upgrade to this, you have to buy all new accessories if you are an iPad accessory person. What we do have on this new iPad is a pretty impressive spec bump here. You have an M4 chip. They had to skip an entire generation of chip in order to give us the new iPads, and it's very impressive. It's an extremely powerful and energy efficient device. They say that this new iPad is 1.5 times faster than the previous M2 chip generation of iPad Pro. And I will say I had the last generation of iPad Pro and I had absolutely no trouble with that ever at any time. So this one is blowing that out of the water as it is. One of the things I'm most excited about though is the new display. The new Ultra Retina XDR display is Apple's first OLED display on an iPad, and it's taken to the next level with what they call a tandem OLED display. How they described it in the keynote is like two OLED panels put together. So you have a very bright and very vibrant screen. And I will say this, you can absolutely see the difference of, and is very, very cool in person. This year, we also have the choice to choose between what kind of display we want, whether that's a standard glass display or the new nano texture option. We've seen the nano texture display on studio displays before, and what it's meant to do is to reduce glare, and it's supposed to look kind of like a matte screen. I personally went for the standard glass. I'm very curious about the nano texture display. Although it's a really cool option, it's a very expensive option, and it also seems to be kind of hard to get your hands on it. I was going to order that just to test it out, and the earliest delivery date isn't until June. The other thing I've heard is that we've seen this display, the nano texture display, on the studio displays, and that it's not super durable. And I have some concerns with that because your studio display, you're not touching, you're just looking at it, and your iPad, you touch all of the time with your hands, with your pencil and your hands at the same time. I frequently have to clean the screen of my iPad because it gets oils from my hands onto the screen. It's just something that you have to do. So I am a little bit concerned about the durability there, and I'm very curious to see how it goes for anybody who got the nano texture display a few months to a year or two in the future. Another new feature that I'm really glad that we have in this model is new placement for the front camera. It's now in the landscape position. It used to be on the portrait side, and if you use a Magic Keyboard or any kind of stand, it is a lot easier to take calls from that landscape version than on the side. If you know, you know. If you've had an iPad before, you look a little bit strange when you're taking video calls from your iPad, really because of that placement of the camera. So this is going to be great. And all of this new power in the iPads definitely makes you wonder where they're going with a lot of the software for iPad in the future. And I, like a lot of other people, are patiently waiting for WWDC to see what comes out in terms of software for this device and to see what iPad OS looks like in the future. But we have seen some app updates for some really exciting pro level apps like Logic and Final Cut Pro. Personally, I'm already really excited about the new version of Final Cut. We're getting Final Cut Pro 2 for iPad, and this will allow multicam use, which is really cool. But what I'm most excited about is a very basic feature, but that is just editing off of a hard drive. I edit off a hard drive basically every piece of video content that I use. It's the only practical way to video edit, really, if you do it with any sort of regularity. And I'm very excited to be able to do that on my iPad and then be able to really trade off my project from my iPad to my computer in the future if that's what I want to do. That new app is coming out soon, and I'll definitely be testing it as soon as it comes out. So if you're interested in seeing that, let me know down below. Now, on the surface, this iPad might not look very different from previous iPads in the lineup, but they have changed a lot that make all of the other accessories that have ever been out for iPad Pro unusable with it anymore. A large part of that is because they moved the camera from the portrait to the landscape version, and now where the pencil connects wasn't going to connect the same way the Generation 2 pencil did, and so they redesigned the pencil. And at first I was expecting this to be kind of gimmicky, but maybe my favorite part out of this entire iPad launch is the new Apple Pencil Pro. Apple Pencil Pro was one of my major reasons for wanting to upgrade, because this pencil has a bunch of new functions in it that we didn't have before. For one, we have a new squeeze feature, and this brings up shortcut menus in a lot of the apps that you're used to using, like GoodNotes, Procreate, your usual freeform app, and it is very useful to switch between your tools, undo things, change colors, things like that. Another thing that Apple Pencil Pro has now is called barrel roll, and you're able to change the orientation of your brush. So imagine a paintbrush, when you have it flat, it's coming down this way, it's going to make a thicker line, and then if you turn it and you try to make a line this way, it's going to be thinner. It gives you a lot of variation with your painting techniques, and now you're able to do that with Apple Pencil, and I think this is going to be a big benefit for a lot of artists who need to use these kinds of textures. I can see a lot of use case scenarios for this for artists and calligraphers and even people who are just casual users of these kinds of art tools. Another nice little thing that they've added to Apple Pencil Pro is they now have Find My enabled on here. So if you're someone who's lost your Apple Pencil quite a bit, it's not gonna be an issue anymore, which is nice. And now I did say none of your old accessories would work, including the Magic Keyboard. So they have redesigned it. It is one of my favorite accessories, so I did repurchase it, although this one hurt to rebuy because it is not really significantly different than the last one. They have made some updates. For one, the material on the inside is aluminum, which I really enjoy. They've added a function row here, and they've also made the trackpad larger, and now it has haptic feedback. So it's gonna feel a lot more like a MacBook than it did before. I will say that although the aluminum is nice, it is largely a very similar experience to the last Magic Keyboard, which was great. I love my Magic Keyboard. It just kind of annoyed me to have to repurchase it, and I wish that the outside was aluminum as well. If they were going to change the material, it would have been nice for the material to go the whole way around. And I do get a little bit concerned about the soft touch material. It's something I do feel like I have to be careful with. So I wish that they were going to change the material. They just changed it on the outside as well. But other than that, I am surprised to report that I really enjoy this. It feels a lot slimmer and more compressed than the last version. And I'm not sure if that's mostly coming from the iPad being so much thinner itself, or if the whole package itself feels more compressed. They did change the orientation of the USB connector on the side. So instead of it being tilted out, it's flush against the back spine of the Magic Keyboard when it's folded over. And this does feel very, very slim, and I quite enjoy using it. So it's not something I regret buying. I do love using a Magic Keyboard. I just wish they carried that aluminum the whole way out. And of course it is very expensive for what it is. If you're gonna use it, totally worth it. I would think about your workflow before you decide what accessories to buy. Now, it wouldn't be one of my reviews if we didn't ultimately talk about price, because you could have the best product on the planet, but if the price isn't right, it's not gonna work out. And unfortunately, I think the iPad Pro at this point kind of falls into that category, especially if you're looking at that 1 or 2 terabyte option, especially if you're adding that nano texture. And now that you have to repurchase a new Apple Pencil and a new Magic Keyboard all over again, it is astronomically priced. It is definitely in the category of buying a computer. And at this point, especially with the announcement of that new iPad Air 13-inch specifically, I wonder who is really getting the functionality out of the new iPad Pros. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it. I will be keeping it. I love iPads, so it's one of those things that I really enjoy having. But at this point, it is really hard to ignore that the hardware is really top tier, but iPad OS and the apps that are available don't take the place of a computer. I'm really hopeful that now that we have this kind of hardware, that we're going to get more software that will make it so that it can kind of take the place of a lot of creative tasks. For one thing, video editing is something I would really like to do more on my iPad. But currently, since I haven't been able to edit off of an external drive using Final Cut, it's just not practical for me to switch over my workflow from my MacBook to my iPad. But I'm hoping with the new Final Cut Pro that I'm able to do that. And if it is that way, then it would absolutely have been worth it for me. And I can update if that happens in the future. And I do have my fingers crossed for WWDC to see what's gonna happen and if iPad OS is going to blow our minds in this coming year. Here's to hoping. So what are my final thoughts on the iPad Pros? Do you need one of these new iPad Pros? The answer is probably not. If you have one of the M versions of the last iPad Pros, you definitely don't need to upgrade. You have plenty there. I can almost guarantee that it's working almost like brand new still. And if that's the case, you definitely don't need to upgrade. If you're someone who really wants that new Apple Pencil Pro, and I totally get that, what I would recommend is looking at the new iPad Airs, especially now that we have that iPad Air in the 13-inch size. When I look at my workflow, I can do all of it basically on my iPad Air 13-inch. And that is what I would recommend to most people, and the price is right and you have the colors. So just something to think about. That being said, do I like my iPad Pro? Yes. Am I going to keep it? Yes. Do I think that the display is beautiful? Yes, but I will be patiently waiting, like all of us, for an update in iPad OS and hoping that we get more features in the future. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It helps out this little channel more than you know and allows me to continue making videos like this. And if you have any questions, leave them down below. And if I can answer them, I will, and I will catch you next time. Bye.